Welcome back to the Ivory Tower. We're joined now by Andrew Marr, the co-founder of With One Seed, an Australian-based social enterprise focused on Timor-Leste. As we've already seen, the environment plays a crucial role in Timorese life. We've also seen how the environment has suffered from the many conflicts in East Timor. At the time of the Indonesian invasion in 1975, half the country was covered in primary and secondary forest. Now, reports suggest it could be less than 10%. This has flow-on effects for the largely subsistence farming communities. Deforestation leads to soil erosion and degradation, and it also raises the water table, affecting crop yields. Nowadays, many Timorese subsist on just 80 cents a day. Welcome to the program, Andrew.
Thanks, Andrew.
What's your organisation doing about this?
One of the things that With One Seed is looking at trying to do is to improve the environment in Timor, trying to improve the economy in Timor, and trying to improve education standards in Timor. And we're doing that through a program called With One Seed, which is looking at reforestation and putting the natural forest back into Timor.
Well, that figure that suggests now that primary and secondary forests in East Timor have been degraded to the extent that there could be less than 10% left. They're staggering figures.
It is phenomenal, really.
What's the effect of that on the ground?
Oh, the effect of that on the ground is that there's significant erosion, roads, landslide. Roads are washed away. Landslides occur regularly during the wet. The soil is of very poor quality, so therefore the yields out of crops are low. Which then plays into the issue around malnutrition, which then plays into the issue around kids turning up for school malnourished, and therefore their learning ability is reduced. Therefore the ability to be able to get a good education is reduced, therefore the ability to be able to build the economy is reduced, so it just has this amazing flow-on effect. And
the answer is to plant trees?
I think one of the answers is to plant trees, and there are significant flow-on effects that then come from planting those trees that should then reverse what I was just saying before. So you plant the trees, the soil gets held in place, the erosion is reduced, the soil degradation is reduced, crop yields are better nutrition, better learning outcomes, better economy.
What trees are you planting? Where are you planting? How many?
Currently we're planting mahogany trees. We had a conversation with the community of Bagir, which is where we're working, which is a couple of 100 kilometres east of Dili, up in the mountains. And we presented the idea of planting either mahogany, teak or sandalwood, which were traditional trees, native trees to the area. And the community chose mahogany trees to start with. And so we've been piloting over the past 4 years a program that provides farmers with up to 500 trees each. The farmers go and plant those trees on their land, and then they get paid an annual fee for maintaining those trees.
What's the lifespan of one of those trees? It would take a fair while to mature, I imagine.
Well, the lifespan, time for maturity is around 20 years, and so they will then get paid to look after those trees for 20 years, and then after that period of time they'll then be able to look at a timber industry around selective harvesting. The original idea was taken from an idea that Tim Flannery came up with in one of his books called Now or Never, and there was a chapter there called Trees for Security. And the idea was to get subsistence farmers in the Asia-Pacific rainforest belt to look after their forests. And they were encouraged to do that for two reasons. One, that's where their livelihoods come from. And the other, the more forests that are maintained around the world, the more carbon can potentially be taken out of the atmosphere. And that's a critical issue that the world faces at the present time.
So planting trees underpins the economic approach, but are there other aspects of rebuilding or helping rebuild the East Timorese economy that you're working with?
Yeah, there are four main elements to the work that we're looking at. So one is around reforestation through community forestry, so putting the forest back. It also has an element around agroforestry and permaculture, because once the trees are put back into the ground, you then look at bringing in permaculture and yield management work on the ground underneath the trees that are in the ground. We also have a very strong commitment to an education program that the people who live up in the mountains, many of them were suffering severely from the occupation, the Indonesian occupation, where they were hiding in the mountains for 5 or 6 years, moving from place to place every night. When they were eventually taken out of the mountains by the Indonesians, they were then put into camps. So the learning that you would expect a person to have just didn't occur for those people. And one of the things I think that is really important for people like myself when we go up to places like that is to leave all your assumptions behind. And I find that it's a really difficult thing to be able to do. But just recently, one of the last trips that I took up there, one of the farmers was saying, "You need to come and teach us how to look after these trees." And I'm scratching my head thinking, you're farmers, you know how to plant stuff. But when you hear the story about every night moving from camp to camp, being then taken and put into camps, not going through those natural learning processes that you would as a kid, it's no wonder they don't have the capacity to know how to do it.
So you say education is a crucial part of what you do. What are the techniques you use then in these remote areas of East Timor to instruct? How does the learning happen?
Well, the learning happens obviously in a number of ways. It's very hands-on, particularly with farmers, of working with them. We take people from the Australian Agroforestry Network, go up there with us, and they run a program called the Master Tree Growers program. So they actually work hands-on, training a select group of farmers in how to go about planting, maintaining and looking after the forest. Those farmers then go and work in a train-the-trainer type model where they then take that further. So it's all about training local people in how to run and maintain the forests that they're engaged with. At a school level, it's quite different in that the programs that we've been working on with partners like the Royal Botanic Gardens, we're going in there and talking about the value of trees and the importance of maintaining trees in the ground. The Timorese very clearly understand the value of trees, and the value of trees often is around firewood and then being able to survive, cook food, take the wood for building materials and stuff like that. But we've got to work with them to get them to understand that you can't just keep chopping trees down, that they've got to be left in the ground to be able to grow, and that's part of the learning as well.
The other aspect of this is regional partnerships. So what does that mean? How do you achieve this?
Well, one of the things that we see as being very critical to this program is to get people, and particularly young people in Australia, to recognise their position in the region. The government, well, the former government and former governments before that had an idea around focusing Australia into the Asia-Pacific region. And to do that, we really need to understand what the Asia-Pacific region is about. Unfortunately, one of the focuses that government has then is on the big economies, and it's around where the money is. So the focus becomes China and India and Indonesia. And one of the things that we're very keen to see happen is that the focus also appears or is delivered to those smaller, fragile economies. And so part of it is about getting people in Australia to go and spend time in Timor, to understand the life of Timorese people. We also have a strong commitment about linking the schools in Australia and schools in Timor, so that the young people are the ones of the next generation who are going to really have to make a difference with this whole climate change issue that we have in this country. And so the partnership approach to that means that we can learn two ways, on a two-way street from them and us to them.
Briefly, you're getting results?
Look, I think so. It's early days. We haven't done any really formal evaluation of what we're doing. The interest in the community is growing significantly. We have 40,000 trees. We have 8 people employed. We've been putting in around $30,000 a year into the village economy. The idea is to put $1 in a person's pocket as opposed to running a program, an aid or charity type program that when the aid and charity program finishes, everything disappears. This idea is about empowering local people through building the local economy and giving them control over that economy. And I think that there are starting to be indicators that that's working.
Well, I wish you well with it. Thank you very much for coming in.
Pleasure,
Thanks,
thank you.
And that's it for this episode of the Ivory Tower. Thanks to the guests and thanks to the Swinburne students involved in the production. I'm Andrew Dodd. Until next time, see you later.